have a few people not show up. It appears as but still, hey, what a great day to celebrate tnAchieves. When Ben first approached me with this about hosting this year, because we're our strategic location, absolutely, I agree. I'm in the what am I called, Ben?
Mentor Hall of Fame.
Mentor Hall of Fame. You've seen that, right? Been there a long time. Big supporter of tnAchieves. I've had a lot of successful students. A lot of them we tend to steer toward TCATs, but we do in some community college. But anyway, but when Ben asked for us to, if we could host this, I said absolutely. But the one problem was he only gave me 10 minutes to talk. Some of you that's been around me enough, it'll take me 10 minutes to tell you basically only 10 minutes to say something. So, but without further ado, I need to say something real quick. I need to thank my staff and faculty. Folks, if you've not been around, together. Let me tell you what happened this morning. So we were sitting and we said, okay, with the panel here, they're going to use this projector. We very seldom ever use that projector. Guess what happened? We fired up that projector this morning and the bulb was blown. So we said, we have another bulb. No, we didn't have another bulb. We said, well, we got another projector. We do. So the staff here, Josh, where y'all at? They're not in here. Matt and Corey and all y'all, you know where you're at, and Chase. They actually set that thing up closer to where that light was. Well, it wouldn't focus. So what they do? They took it apart and moved it. So thank y'all. That's TCAT stuff right there. So I have the distinct honor of welcoming some people here, and I think we've got the best checked off as current. Some of them I'm going to add a little bit to them, not to take away from anybody here, but I'm going to go ahead and start. He is not here, and I don't think we have a representative for Governor's Lee's office here, folks. We've had a pretty good run of governors in the DVR system in many years now. But Governor Lee, I affectionately call it the Big B. I think anybody that had been under a rock, sure, if you've been around me, you've heard around it. The $1 billion that went toward the TCATs for expansion. Folks, we have got part of Upper Cumberland, you know, is also the Livingston, Cookville area, and all the way to Kentucky, Bledsoe County. We have got huge expansions going on. And my favorite word is game changer. And that was one of the most pivotal, game-changing things that I think ever happened to us in TCATs. And thanks to Governor Lee for that. We got a campus brand new campus going on in Bledsoe County. And before I get too far ahead, Mayor Ridley, you here? Greg Ridley, raise your hand. Folks, Mayor Ridley gave us some property in Bledsoe County to help get a TCAT down there. And it's coming on up. I think in spring we're going to have it open. Thank you very much, sir. Stuff. But I got to say this, and by the way, my evaluation has already been done. So everything I'm saying is taken apart. We have with us Dr. Ford Hines, the Chancellor, if y'all did not know, the Chancellor of the Tennessee Board of Regents. She's here, she's brought John and Patrick with her. The Chancellor, give everybody a high. There's a lot of game-changing folks in this room, but I'll say this. The Chancellor, it was well understood when she became our Chancellor that student first every single day. And I thought that was so cool that we shared that mantra. We say that, hey, you're not here for yourself, you're here for a student. And she has expressed that to every community college and every TCAT across the whole system. Thank you, ma'am, for your leadership very much. Different ones, let me move on here before I forget. Melody is here. Melody Edmonds, one of our TCAT presidents from McMinnville. There you are, Melody. Silky smooth voice. He's going to be on the panel. You're here. He's President Wallow. He's game changer. Does some real innovative stuff in Wallow. Does a great job. Representative Johnny Garrett is here somewhere. There you are, sir. Thank you all. I mentioned Governor Lee, but without you guys, all of our stuff would happen. That's you all. And my good friend, Representative Kelly Keesman, where's he at? Last of the true statesmen right there. Who we got? I'll skip you. Michael, you're here. Michael Morrow, representing Senator Blackburn's office back there in the back. Yeah, there you are. And Mayor Foster, Alan Foster, Cumberland County Mayor. Where are you at? Mayor Foster over here. Excellent. Mayor, I'm going to take this advantage, and I've only got 10 minutes, but I'm going to say this. The property that you've been letting us use for our truck driving program, whatever you're gonna do with that, when we move to other buildings, I guarantee you I can figure out something you need to do. So thank you very much for that. I also need to mention, I don't think he's here. Is RJ here? RJ's not here. RJ Crawford is the mayor of Crossfield. Valerie Hill is the city manager. Valerie Wade. We have got a new truck driving diesel building that's actually going to open at the end of this month on some property that former mayor started with us, James Fairbury, and RJ and Valerie picked it up and went with it. And thank you all so much. It's a beautiful, beautiful campus over there, and we're going to do great things with that. Appreciate y'all's cooperation. Let's see, I got Mr. Ridley. Steve Jones, Macon County Mayor, just made him today. There you are. Good talking to you, sir. Lizette Reynolds. Lizette, I think I owe you one of those flag things. I believe I'll see you at the real conference. We'll give you some stuff. Linda Martin, tnAchieves Board. There you are, Miss Martin. And Randy Boyd. I've got to say this. I've known Randy Boyd a long time, and I hate to say this. Back when, it is what it is. The government, I appreciate it very much. When Mr. Boyd was running for governor, we were kind of closet Boyd fans, right? We don't really get to go to political events, but we would go and listen, and always enjoyed hearing you speak. And if you don't know the history of him, he done well in his side business with the pets, and in a stint with Governor Haslam and ECD. And I was joking to him earlier, he fooled around and got a real job. He's in higher ed now. But it is higher ed. It's not easy. But thank you very much, sir. And I'm going to say this: this today would not even be here. This would never existed without you, former Governor Haslam, and there were several others. Christie was one of the ones. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Game changer. See, Mayor Johnson, Fentress County. If you ever decide you want that campus up there to be turned over to TCAT Upper Cumberland, holler at me. We'll get in just a second. Jimmy's a great guy. He is. That is one of the mayors that is always working for a county. Thank you very much, sir. And without any further ado, the only reason I was really up here was this guy. So I had known, Speaker Sexton a long time, and Speaker Sexton has always been a great ally. Even back in the days when the Van Hillary days, he's always been a great ally of our system, especially the TCATs. And as being a TCAT president, I sort of have started gauging people on whether or not they have the moxie to be a president. These are not easy jobs. Mr. Boyd, Chancellor Tidings, I can't imagine on your level what goes on, but these are not easy jobs. Some of us make it look easy, but they are tough. A lot of situations face them all the time. So I generally will judge somebody whether or not you size them up and think, I wonder if they can run a TCAT. That's kind of how I rate people. If you've ever watched the legislature, that on a good day, sir, can be a zoo. And I would say this. If there was anyone else in the room that I think would have the moxie, if you ever get out of politics and go through whatever rehab that you have to do to get out of you're more than welcome to work at any TCAT. I can guarantee that. And folks, it gives me great pleasure. Please welcome the 83rd Speaker of the House of Tennessee, Representative Cameron Sexton.
Let me just say, I've seen Beth Harwell, who was the previous speaker, after she left the speaker, and she looks well rested. So I think the rehab does work out pretty well. Is when you decide to get out of politics. Let me just say it's wonderful to be here. It's great to be with my good friend Randy Boyd. I've learned a lot from him. I'm going to use one of his comments in my speech, but I want you to think that I prefer to take questions. So I'm going to speak just a little bit, but take a couple of questions. But let me just say, we have a great governor, Bill Lee, who, when he came into office, Governor Haslam did a lot of things to put our budget in the right place, put the workforce in the right place, to put our state in the right place as far as different business reforms and other things. And Governor Lee has carried us forward with his background in vocational education, other things that he's done to really set the stage for us to be successful for a long time. And a lot of that goes back to rural communities and the importance of a rural community. And I think what you've seen over the last 15 years, 16 years, is more businesses looking to go into rural communities. But we also have to realize rural communities don't have the assets that maybe the bigger communities have. And so how do we help them with the assets? How do we help them continue to build out? And a lot of that starts with a quality education, to be honest with you. That's really what the name of the game is at the end of the day, is how good is the education. That is what will bring in businesses. That is what will bring in residents. Here in Cumberland County and other counties around here, we understand that people will live and work somewhere else, but they're going to send their kids to the school that they think is the best fit for their child. And that's really what it's about in the end. And I think as we're looking at how we continue to build economic development, it has to be through education. And that's why it's important that we've had two great governors who valued education. I was with Governor Youngkin yesterday in Knoxville, and he got asked the question, what's 3 things that you did as governor that really helped you with education in Virginia? One was transparency, which we already did in Tennessee. We've already put in transparency, where you know where your child is. There's a lot of debate about, are they where the parents think they are, or where the teachers think they are, or where the tests think they are. And all 3 could be a little bit different, but you have to provide the parents with clarity about what exactly is happening and where that child is. He talked also about having, he called it accreditation. We have accreditation where we rank what the schools are and where they are, so you have an understanding if they're achieving or not achieving. And then he talked about testing and other things. But in Tennessee, we've already done that, and so we are having success. We have improved our proficiency rates in our state. Now, we have a really bad school system in West Tennessee that brings down the rest of the state. I understand that. Also one in Middle Tennessee that brings down the standards across. But at the end of the day, I always thought that education should be about teaching the student about how to think, how to analyze, how to communicate and debate, and about how to look at material and make their own decisions. Basically, how to think independently, right? As long as you go and you understand there needs to be math and there needs to be other things, but if we create a public to where, for example, like a Charlie Kirk, who goes out and debates ideas and thoughts and has the capability of doing that, we win as a society, regardless of how you vote or who you go after. And so having an education that's designed like that, I think is very important. And also, as you're thinking about too, is limited resources, per capita spending on, or per pupil spending on kids, that's really important. But at the end of the day, it really gets back to making sure that the parent knows where their child is. And I will say, when I was in school, I was not an A student. I was really an A or B student. I was able to achieve all the grades as a student. I was very diverse as a student. My strength was in math, and if y'all know me, you know analytical is kind of what I do. But I think sometimes today we're afraid to tell the parents that their child is failing, that their child is behind, because of the ramifications. And we cannot allow that to happen if we uncover it. I'm not saying it happens a lot. But it is okay for people to make B's and C's. It is. There's nothing wrong with that. And I kid with Randy all the time, I would not be allowed to get into UT today as I would have back then because of how my grades were, but that's okay, right? Maybe that wouldn't have been the path for me this time compared to years ago. But we also need to have the understanding, we talk about how we don't want participation trophies in sports. We sure do not want that in school. School is more important than sports. And so you need to have a very accurate count of where that student is. And you do that through testing, you do it through other means. We're going to look at our testing in the state and maybe pull back a little bit, hopefully. There's some ideas floating around. But knowing that you still need to have testing is really important when you do the classroom as well. And it's important to have a very good understanding. And I will say one of the things, one of the lines I'll use from Randy is he always would say, if you're an entrepreneur, you're only a good entrepreneur if you have failed in the past. Because everyone who's pushing and going forward is going to fail. Every student who's pushing and going forward, if they're being challenged enough, they should fail. You should fail. You have to know what failure is. You have to learn how to get over it. And I remember Nathaniel, when he was going through school, my oldest, he had a teacher who was pushing him, and he thought he could do something that he turned in a paper and he got like a D. And he had to push himself the next whole year to get back to a B. But what that did is transformed him, so when he got to college, he knew how to push himself. Right? And so he was able to buckle down when he had to, because he already knew how to do it. So we have to challenge, I think, and this may seem a little crazy, but even though our proficiency rates are lower, we should challenge our students more. They should be challenged more. We can do more in K through 3 than we ever thought we could. I've seen kids learn Latin in 3rd grade. I've seen kids learn memorization in kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd that you would never think that they do. You could see them do speeches, 5-minute speeches that they memorize, right? To build them up, to allow them to see that they can be successful, to allow them to push themselves. And so I helped with the Crab Orchard girls team. Greer played last night. We won. That was great. But I challenged them on Saturdays. I take them to Cookville, and we play against 6th graders. And we get annihilated, which is fine. We get beat by 20, we get beat by 16, but you have to know how to compete with someone bigger, stronger, faster. Because you're not always going to be competing with people who are the same level as you. So you have to understand what that looks like. And so that's what I think we need to achieve in education. And I think that's what we need to achieve in our state. And I think we are. We're competing with states and other people all the time. We're striving to do more and bigger and better and learning from ourselves. And so what I was going to talk about Randy is he always would say, as an entrepreneur, he would propose an idea and people would say, we can't do that. And he'd be like, why not? Why can't we not do that? Because we've never been able to do that in the past. We tried and failed. But maybe it's different. Maybe you got someone else involved. Maybe there's another aspect. Why limiting yourself based on past failures? Why not try to think about it more? Build better, right? And so one of the things I'll talk about is if we have a teacher shortage in our state, should there be another mechanism that helps us to get teachers into the classroom? It's great that they all have bachelor's degrees, and that's wonderful. Maybe there's a way to work with the community colleges to get a certain level of teachers in the classroom who graduate from community colleges and allow them to build up to get a bachelor's degree later, right? They all go get masters, they get PhDs later. Would that help us in our rural communities using our community colleges for an aspect that's very important to us? So as we look at and we start questioning, why is it always like this? Why can't we do something different? And I think that's what we've had in Tennessee all these years. I think regardless of when it was Phil Bredesen governor, whether it was Ned Ray McWhorter, Sundquist, Haslam, Lee, they've always come in with a business mentality of, why can't we not do better? Why can't we do this? Don't tell me no, tell me how, or how we can achieve it. That's what tnAchieves is about. They came back with something that no one else was doing because they saw the importance. And then the state kind of copied it and put in some other stuff to take it on, but it still survives today through mentorship, tutoring. And here in Crossville, they're putting in a YMCA that will help our students after school to get better, to understand it, to give them a place to go. And so I know I was supposed to kind of talk about some of these things, I think I did, but I would love to take a few questions. I think I got a few minutes left. I didn't go too long. What's on your mind, and I'll be happy to answer them. I see a lot of friendly faces in here as well. Anybody want to go first?
I have a
Yes.
comment. You talked about using colleges such as this one to prepare people to teach. In the olden days, back when I was young, we had teachers who had not completed college, but they were certified to teach until they completed their college. So maybe we could do something like that.
Right, yeah, I mean, look, I think, it's a blank canvas, right? We have a blank canvas. We have one canvas that says, here's the bachelor's route that you can go to be a teacher. We understand what that route is. But we also know, and we also have the route of, if I'm a chemist and I have a college degree in chemistry, we do know how to get them in the classroom. But that's evolved, right? And so we've done a good job with that as well. But there's also an aspect of using our community colleges and TCATs to help us. And I would tell you it would be more kind of like, with my bad analogy for y'all, kind of like our nursing programs. We have an LPN that doesn't do everything that an RN does. It doesn't do everything that a nurse anesthetist does, right? Or a nurse practitioner do, right? They all do different levels, and so but it's based on your training and what you do. And so, is there an opportunity there to create something, right? I also know when I talk to teachers and talk to administrators across the state, they talk about substitute teachers and about. Technically, I'm assuming you can tell me I'm wrong, but if I wanted to be a substitute teacher in Cumberland County, I could just go sign up, and whenever they call, right? I'm not sure that it requires anything of me other than my willingness to participate, right? Which is wonderful that people want to be a substitute teacher, but maybe we could use the TCAT to provide a little classroom training before they ever step in that classroom and get hammered, I think, on those first few days, right? But I'm just saying, maybe the schools do it, but we got to take some pressure off the schools so that they can focus on the students, and they're not having to do a lot of things that we could be helping other people do to help them strengthen what they're currently doing, right? And maybe it's a terrible idea, maybe we don't want to do it, but it should be ideas that we think about, not to offend anybody, not because anybody else is doing it. It's just is what we're currently doing the best way to go about what we're trying to achieve, right? Anybody else? Yes.
In 2020, we talked about, or one of the discussion came about when people retired, they could officially retire, draw their retirement, and go back and work full time as a possibility without inside the TCRA system. What is that talk ever still coming to the table, or are you aware of anything?
There's some of that. I think there's help through. I believe you can go through the 180-day contracts for those of you all in school. I think you can somewhat do that through the 180-day contracts to a little degree, but that's not considered full time, right? And so I think there's an opportunity there. It's something that we should think about, should discuss, to say this is what we want to do, right? But at the end of the day, the most important asset that we have is that child, in my opinion, because that child's going to determine what our future looks like. And the amount of time, both my parents were teachers, my grandparents were teachers, the amount of time that our teachers spend with our children when they're in school is enormous. And that's where I get back, and this is where the House got back this last year, and I appreciate Kelly and Johnny's support on this, is we want to maximize the amount of time that teacher can teach in the classroom. And if we're providing tests or needing to do tests, whether it's imposed by the locals or by the state or by the federal, we want to make sure that they're getting the results they need and that they're being used. If we're testing and we're not taking those results and getting them back to the families, the students, or the teachers in town, we should be doing it. Testing is about allowing people to see where they're at so we can get better. But helping retirees who want to come back, I think we do to a certain degree. Obviously, I think we could do a little bit more. Yes, sir.
Bliss County was fortunate enough to be awarded the AWARE program for mental health for the kids. It's made all the difference in the world. That's going to go away this year, and I'm afraid the outside contracts that you all have done with different mental health organizations are not going to step in and lead to the same thing. So I hope that it could be addressed similar to the way you did SROs to help counties out, that maybe some mental health be brought into all the schools across the state, because there's a real issue right now with behavior and mental, which is led from the mental health.
No, there is. I mean, look. I mean, you talk to teachers in the classroom, and you know, there's a lot of issues post-COVID that weren't pre-COVID, right? Whether we bring back the awareness or fund it is an important thing, but getting the mental health aspect in there as well, knowing that you have to be very protective of if they're diagnosed and what you uncover and it doesn't get out and it's not public. So there's a lot of safety, privacy concerns that you have as well. But look, I mean, I think too, the other thing is, we over-medicate children, if you want to be honest. If you look at TCAT, the top 5 of the 8 drugs are ADHD meds. Just to be honest with you. Top 5 of the top 8. Or top 5 of the top 8. We cannot prescribe our way out of mental health, right? If you have a kid who's defined as ADHD or whatever, there's other things that we can do through different programs and other things that help them through the classroom without putting medication in their system, which will cause other problems later in life. And so, can we do more? Yes. Do we have to protect privacy? Yes. Should we look at how we prescribe medicine? Absolutely yes. But the kids today are faced with more negativity than any generation in the past. And that's why it's important for us to remove cell phones out of the classroom the best that we can. Because those cell phones distracted them in the classroom when the teacher's trying to teach, and then all of a sudden it creates a whole new dynamic, bullying and other things that are there as well. And so I think we're working our way through it. I'm happy that if we can continue to support the awareness program or other things that would help students overcome their issues.
With the suicide issue, it's huge.
Yeah, I mean, look, the suicide issue is big, and look, and one of the things, if you look at all the data, the female suicide rate's even higher. And when the phones changed, to be honest with you, because you can see when the phones went from just the normal phone to now the Apple phone and everything else, suicide rates went up. That's why one thing is important to get them out of the classroom. And I would hope that parents would see that and try to pull back from their students or their child using those phones. But the social media and the phones have really helped increase the suicide rate as well. Yes?
I have another comment. Is there an emphasis in Tennessee to build more mental health facilities?
It's a good question. I'll make that my last one because I haven't gotten a look yet because Cliff had to give me the look. He's already told me. So, yes, there is. There's a great debate in our state about building more long-term beds. We have Moccasin Bend, which has some beds, but not as many as you think that they would have. We have the beds in Bolivar, West Tennessee, that has some beds, not as many as you think that they would be. There was a huge push years ago that would limit long-term inpatient because it was deemed inhumane back in the day, which I totally agree. I think we could do it better today than they were doing it back in the 60s and 70s and so forth. So there is a push for community-based, and we've had these conversations with the governor. There was a big push for community-based many years ago. What happened is you see homeless, right? That's one aspect of people who have mental health issues. They're now homeless, and so that's one aspect of it. You have the mental health, and if Sheriff Cox was here, he would tell you probably about 60% of the people who are in the prison have mental health issues, right? That's the other problem. And if you had our nursing home people here, they would tell you that in long-term care facilities, there's another 40% who have long-term mental health issues. And so we're okay with dividing them up and putting them in other places. In long-term care, they can't even treat them for mental health, which is another problem that you have, because that's not why they're there. It's not a mental health facility. And so we have to do better. Should there be people who are committed long-term outside of the court? Yes, there should be. I mean, I think we see people that should be committed long-term. Should we have the help? Should we have more beds to help them? Absolutely. And so, hopefully we'll get to the point. The best place to do it is in Bolivar. We have more land in Bolivar than we do anywhere else. And that community has embraced their aspect of what they do for mental health for decades. And so I do think we need more beds that will help us in all aspects. But it doesn't stop there. We also need to get earlier treatment. We also need to get substance abuse going. That's why it's important. Look, it's important that the governor sent the National Guard to Memphis. It's important that the president sent all these resources to Memphis to rid ourselves of these gangs. Because what the gangs do for crime, they also do for drug, which they also do for human trafficking, which causes all these other problems. And so if we can get rid of the gangs, that helps our drug problem, that helps a lot of different other stuff. And so hopefully we can work through that, and at that point in time, the worst time to give someone mental health help is when they're in an episode. You can't. When we talk to a lot of people, Dr. Stephen Lloyd, who was part of their substance abuse with the state a long time ago, he will talk to you. I'll end on this note. The addiction is so bad, meaning the desire is so bad, that he had been clean for 20 years from taking OxyContin. 20 years. He'd been clean. And if you put a prescription bottle on that screen of OxyContin, his body will still react to that. That's what they're dealing with. but he went through extensive treatment for years to overcome that. And so now he has the tools to fight off that addiction. But imagine if he was 6 months out and that popped up and he was not prepared to handle that. And so we have to do a better job of long-term success in that, in education. So I'll stop right there. It's great to be with you. I'd like to take too long. Cliff will let me know when I get done. But thank you all so much for coming today.
I completely agree with Speaker Sexton, and thanks for all your support over the years. We're here because of students. We care deeply about students at tnAchieves. We wake up every day thinking about a holistic approach to student success. My name's Chrissy Alejandro. It has been my honor and privilege for the last 18 years. I know that's hard to believe because I'm still only 25, but bear with me. 18 years serving as president and CEO of tnAchieves. I get to wake up every day and serve students who grew up like me. I'm a first-generation low-income student from McMinnville, Tennessee. McMinnville, if you're a local, Melody could agree with that. It's about 45 minutes from here, and I am so thrilled to talk about our work across rural Tennessee for the last 15 years. I'm a little bit of a math nerd, if you know me, so if you'll bear with me, I'm going to set some context before we bring a panel up and talk about our success over the years. I think what we just heard from the speaker is that it takes a holistic approach to get students from elementary through secondary into post-secondary and then successfully into the workforce. And that's what we're really thinking about at tnAchieves. And I think what sets us apart is it's a community-based approach. We're really asking the community to come alongside us. It's not something coming from Knoxville or Nashville. It really is about bringing communities along and being rooted in accountability. We do this in a couple of ways. My friend Cliff talked about students first. We certainly share that if we're at a table, we're talking about students. What's the student approach? What's happening with students? Not only because we're listening to students, but because we're paying attention to the data. We want to be community-centered. Many of you are mentors. How many of you have served as a mentor with us? I love that. Thank you so much for your support over the years. We couldn't do this. I've had the privilege of traveling across the country, oftentimes with Brady Boyd, who's been my board chair from the very beginning. And programs like this don't make it because of the funding. It's a nice carrot that brings students and families to a program. And for us, the mentors have been what have really set our program apart. We're also workforce focused. It's great to get them in. It's great to get them out. I think the chancellor would share this, that they have to have a job, a meaningful job on the other side, a career that can be family sustaining. And we're certainly focused there as well. We're big. tnAchieves does work at scale. I often say if we can move the needle for 100 students, we'd be setting the world on fire. But for us, we serve about 90,000 students every year. You can see here 250,000 plus students across rural Tennessee since we launched in 2011 in rural Tennessee. Started in 2008 in Knox County and began that expansion. We've existed in 297 rural high schools. That's a lot of sweaty gens talking about the importance of moving from high school into post-secondary. 75 rural counties like my own. It was a really full circle moment for me when Tennessee Promise was launched, and I led our first team meeting at Warren County High School. 64 colleges, most of which are under the TBR umbrella, and I can't stress enough the importance of that partnership. So how are we doing? It's incredibly important that we continue to keep score. So it's not just about loving on students or being there for students. It's also about moving the needle. And so for us, our rural students are really outpacing students across the state. This year we had a 6 percentage point jump, in fact, in rural 3-year graduation rate across Tennessee, setting a 47% graduation rate. When I first started this work, long before Dr. Tidings was serving as chancellor, we did not see these kinds of graduation rates. And so a lot of intentionality, both from obviously the nonprofit sector, but also TPR, to really be incredibly thoughtful about how to get more students across that finish line. So what does that mean? We've had nearly 25,000 graduates coming through tnAchieves that started in a rural community, graduating from a rural high school, with a significant economic impact, $18+ billion impact because of those graduates, and 85% of those students still living and working in Tennessee. So I think about the compounding effect of that economic impact, all the while tnAchieves is still being so mindful. We're a public-private partnership, so private philanthropy as well as public dollars, incredibly important to our work, and we're still operating at only $83 per student. Places across the country doing this work at $1,000 per student. You won't find a koozie or a sweatshirt coming out of tnAchieves. We're being really mindful of how our dollars were spent. So we like winning. If you know Brady Boyd, and if you know me at all, we like to be first at things. And so for us, it was really about if tnAchieves were a state, where would we fall? We have other programs that we're piloting across the state in an effort to ensure that every student has the support they need to earn a college credential and enter that workforce. If you were a rural Tennessee student, you can see that 47% 3-year grad rate, which puts us 5th in the country, stacking only behind Florida and South Dakota. I do know that UT is also always sort of pitted against Florida in the football space, but we're coming for them as well, just so everybody in the room knows. So how are we doing that? We're doing it in a couple of ways. We're utilizing our volunteer mentors to encourage our students. If you're the first person in your family to go to college, it's a big leap. It's an intimidating, often scary leap, and our mentors have been instrumental in getting our students into that post-secondary pipeline. We're leveraging a statewide pilot. We're on year 4 of 5, embedding college coaches on our campuses across the state to ensure that our students are actually making it to the finish line, empowering our students to earn that all-important credential. We're also coupling that with something that we refer to as completion grants, not a handout, but working with a coach, $2.5 million being given out to our students to address challenges like transportation. If you're in rural Tennessee, you will hear one of the largest barriers to college success, college completion, is transportation, and at tnAchieves we're addressing that in real time. We're also engaging with our students. Randy, ever being the Boy Scout, we had a last dollar scholarship and a mentoring program in 2008 when we introduced the idea to Randy, and he added the community service component. Randy says that we're the largest community service provider in Tennessee, maybe in the, let's just go with the world. We don't know if it's true, but we like being first.
The history of Tennessee.
In the world. World. So we like being first. 2 million hours being given back by our students. And then finally, our students are out earning very real career skills. We launched something several years ago under a job shadowing umbrella, 70+ opportunities since that time for our students to actually go into businesses, places like Murray Regional, places like Color Tech, places like Western Healthcare, and we're trying to make sure that our students actually want to do the job that they think they want to do. Exposure is incredibly important for our students. Again, growing up in McMinnville, I thought you could do 5 things with a college degree. I certainly did not think you could lead a nonprofit. And so, so important for our students to get in and gain that workforce experience. At the end of the day, whether it's a TCAT student or a student from one of our community colleges who enter the workforce with an associate's degree or then transfer to a 4-year institution, we are students first always. Our students are often telling us how proud their families are that they're breaking the mold, that they're doing something and coming out on the other side being much more viable in the workforce. This is a snippet for us of data. I hope you will take our report that is on the table, which does a much deeper dive. As always, the data nerd in me wants to answer all of your data questions, so please come see me if you have additional questions. We are going to turn it over to a panel discussion. Some of my favorite people are sitting in front of you now to talk about the impact that the various pieces of the puzzle. For us, yes, we serve about 90,000 students every year, but we also have parents, K-12, post-secondary, our mentors. It is a big undertaking. Super proud of our team for all the work they've done. But I'm going to turn it over to the panel. Why don't you guys start by introducing yourselves and what your connective tissue is to Tennessee Achieves. Abby, you want to start? You got to take that mic.
Hi everyone, my name is Abby Creekmore. I was a complete student in 2018 to 2020, and then I joined Tennessee Achieves staff in 2022. So that's how I'm connected to both Tennessee Promise and Tennessee Achieves, and I was a rural student from Cable County.
My name is Janice Bettis, and I'm from Sevier County, Tennessee. I worked at Walter State Community College and then retired from there and worked out of the Office of Economic Development. The last few years I worked in Sevier County. I ran Sevier County Partners in Progress. We were a nonprofit foundation that gave scholarships to students to complete their 4-year degree.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Michael Torrance. Good morning. President of Walter State Community College. Usually don't introduce myself as the president. I say I'm the chief tinkerer at the institution. We serve 11 counties in southern Middle Tennessee and have some reciprocity with 3 states in northern Alabama, which include Huntsville. The role that I have been with Chrissy and Randy, learning from Chrissy, but I've served as a mentor since day one. I think she found me on the side of the street. I needed a McDonald's sandwich. She said, "God, the sandwich is going to be a mentor." That's right. So I said yes, and it's been one of the best experiences of my professional career, giving back on a cyclical basis year after year after year, and seeing students be successful.
I'm Dennis Tumlin, and I'm the Chief Customer Officer for the Tennessee Department of Tourist Development, and I serve all 95 counties, and I just work with our stakeholders, both internal and external. But my connection to Tennessee Achieves, I just signed up for year number 11 to be a mentor, and I'll just tell you, President Boyd, you inspired me to do this, and I've enjoyed every moment of it. Thank you for your inspiration.
Dennis, we'll start with you. Ray County did some economic development work there. Why is this work so critical as you think about putting students into the workforce, especially when you're thinking about rural communities across Tennessee?
Yeah, I had a brief stint. I'm a UT, so I started college at Chattanooga State. I was the underdog, first generation grad, probably a poster child for this entire model here. Went to Chat State, went on to University of Tennessee at Chattanooga to complete my bachelor's degree. But after 17 years in corporate America, working for the Coca-Cola company, I got called back home and got into economic development, something I did not know anything about economic development, but I'll tell you, it's a sales job. And so I came home, I knew that I could sell my hometown, and got home, and I wanted to do something great. We were federally distressed, on the ARC distressed list, federally distressed. And we could only go up. From a competitive person, I wanted to go up. But doing economic development in rural Tennessee, you've got certain things you can sell. And I worked with Dr. Tidy, she was at Chattanooga State at the time. And our workforce was the secret sauce. We sold our people, and looking at this beautiful wheel of prosperity that happens when government and education and business leaders come together to create a workforce. When we landed Nokia and Tire, Randy Boyd was at the helm of ECD, and we landed Against All Odds project. It was the workforce development piece that sold it. When we went to Russia to meet with the CEO, we talked about workforce, and Chattanooga State was at the table with us when we went to Russia to win the project. So it's been a fun project, and I love what we do here.
Michael, as you think about your role as chief tinkerer, anytime I've ever talked to you, there's more ideas than there's time for us in a conversation. Why do you think that Tennessee Achieves continues to be a good idea? And talk a little bit about the partnership and how that works on your campuses.
Sure. So we have 7 campuses, and we do have space in northern Alabama that my boss doesn't know about, but she just found about just now. Our goal with Tennessee Achieves has been the TBR mantra of workforce development, because we are a workforce as well as student success. But success for us is defined not how everyone defines success. It's defined on how each student and where each student is. So Tennessee Achieves has done a great job of meeting students where they are, and that's what the Tennessee Board of Regents system does. That's what Palm State has done. In addition, when you think about the fast pace of how everything is changing, the world, the expectations of employers today, our focal areas going forward this year for the system and Malo are focused on AI, which I'm sure everyone's tired of hearing about, tired of talking about, but I think somebody's probably on it right now. And if you're recording me, it's 1999. Okay? Secondly, when we talk about sustainable energy, the idea that we are holistically positioned with the triangle that we have with Oak Ridge, Huntsville, Alabama, obviously, with Nashville, Chattanooga, all the way over to Memphis. So we're positioned to do something, I think, exceptional in the years coming with leadership from the Speaker of the House. Thirdly, aviation. You ever drive by on your way to a park and you wonder why you see all these small planes landing and coming, going and coming? It's because we have a large number of municipal airports. So the idea that young people, whether they live in Nashville or in our rural areas specifically, can not only just be people who would serve you on a plane, but they fly the planes. Our goal is to create aviation and simulated training methodology, and we've done a great job with that. 5,000 hours over the last year, meeting that need. And most importantly, if we are going to teach and develop focus on real skills and trades, it's really important that we grow our own. So as a system, we're focused on teacher education, which is breaking news for everybody. We want you to be aware that we are looking at ways in which not only just the community colleges, as a system we're representative not just community and technical, but the entire enchilada. So the goal for us is how do we bring people who are in the trades into the technical colleges? How do we bring them into the trades and transition those skills that we have into community colleges instruction? So Tennessee Promise, Tennessee Achieves has been wonderful as a lever for us to pull, and we keep hitting the jackpot.
Thank you. Janice, you've been a very long time mentor. I talked today about how that sets our program apart. What's the role that you've played all these years for students, and why is that so important? Not just that you're there for students, but how does that play into the bigger picture in your community?
Well, I think you came to Sevier County 17 years ago and talked to us about participating with Tennessee Achieves and the mentoring program, and I was probably your first mentor, so I have a background in education. I have worked at a community college, I have worked at a 4-year college, and when I retired from there, I went to work in economic development at part-time in Sevier County. It has just been such an honor to work with Chrissy and her team, and since I've been there a long time, I've seen lots of changes, and I want to give them kudos for listening to the students the way they do, adapting the program and making changes that help our students and help them be more successful.
Abby's a Tennessee Achieves team member. She was a Tennessee Achieves student, and now she is serving the communities that she grew up in. Why was it so important to you to come back and work as a coach and work alongside students just like you? Tell us about your story. You're a superstar.
No pressure, right? I'm from Jellicoe, Tennessee. I graduated with about 60 students in my high school class in 2018. If you rewind a little bit, I actually grew up in a livestock barn that was remodeled into a house by a local church for my sister, my mom, and I. I grew up there until age 10. My mom was very academically determined, and that followed me throughout high school. I had a great high school guidance counselor. She was up to date on all things Tennessee Promise, Tennessee Achieves, and she helped me apply for my scholarship and Rhode State because that was the closest college to us. So I then went to my mandatory Tennessee Promise meeting, and I walked out of that meeting feeling incredibly empowered to learn about a scholarship that would allow me to go to Rhode State without paying tuition or mandatory fees. And so I enrolled that following fall at Rhode State Community College, and I commuted about 45 minutes to an hour, 3 days a week for the next 2 years. Also in that 2 years, I was paired with Dawn, who was on our staff as a complete coach. And for me, I definitely struggle with imposter syndrome. Y'all are probably acquainted with that phrase, but essentially a little fear and anxiety around someone realizing that I didn't know exactly what I was doing or if I belonged on a college campus at all. And having someone proactively reaching out, that's what our coaches do and what Dalton did for me, is just, that was the game changer for me as our president of TCAT Upper Cumberland mentioned that word, that's how I felt. Having someone reach out to just say, like, what's going on? Do you need any help with anything? Is there any way I can serve you today? And of course, reminding me about getting registered, FAFSA, community service. Every student's a little bit different, but that was the one piece of my puzzle that was missing. Obviously, that made a pretty big impact, right? I'm back here serving in that same role, serving students, and I think there's power in sitting in front of a student who is commuting to a campus and they are working full-time. I've done those things. And being able to resonate with that and then say, let's get you plugged into resources. One of those being me, if we want to do time management tips, or if we want to process a complete grant. I think specifically for rural students, commuting 45 minutes to an hour. I drove a 2007 Toyota pickup truck, so it was not very gas efficient, right? And so I see a lot of my students doing the same thing, and what a benefit that is to them to relieve a small barrier in the grand scheme of things, but can make a world of difference to a student.
I love that, thank you. Michael, you care deeply about students, and Motto, since Tennessee Promise has just exploded, specifically under your leadership. Talk to us about how you're building a turnkey workforce and how we can continue to play a role there.
Well, I'll start with thank you for saying that it's exploded under my leadership, but I'd also like to give kudos to Chancellor Tidings, who gives me space to just be me. So thank you. Flowers for the day. In 2014, 2015, before Tennessee Promise went everywhere, the Montville State was one of the smallest community colleges in the system. I think with the enrollment just under 4,000. And since then, we jumped up to having my numbers, not TCAT's, not TBR's, 7,029 at the height of 2019, prior to COVID. And then it happened. We had to reset. Since then, we've seen incremental jumps. So we have a 17.8% decrease in enrollment, but we know that the gains over the last several years, which has been about 13%, has been because of our work with the conjunction online with Tennessee Promise, Tennessee Reconnect, so on and so forth. Your Achieves team is amazing. I'm looking at some friends in the room who never show up when I say let's go play golf on Saturday because we haven't married and have children and things like that's getting in my way. So that baby can go back. I'm kidding. But the idea of how has Mottville been able to become a differentiator? So I wrote down 3 things that I think are important. Speaker Sexton talked about transformation, testing, and advocacy. That's what we do from a leadership perspective at the state level. But it's been really transformative. She's been transformative. The numbers don't belie that it's your neighbor. It's the person that you go to church with on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, depending on what denomination you are. It's been truly transformative. And the 3 S's, we've been able to scale. The workforce, we've been able to connect with employers, roughly 258 over the last 18 to 24 months coming out of COVID. It's about service, because this is what everyone in the room is about. How do we help the people that need it the most? Because the way we treat the least of us is the way we treat all of us. And then lastly, which is really important, is our theme at Mottville this year. The stamina to endure success. And I want you to think about that for a second. The stamina to endure success. We are really successful. We've been very, very hot in the market in terms of business and industry growth, growth in our higher education sectors, so on and so forth. But what will that stamina look like? What will it take for us to endure success? Most people get comfortable. I'm wired differently. This past year, we had 258,300 plus hours of workforce. We're number 1 this year, Cliff. That's when we get out there. Yes, sir. But the point of that isn't that we won, like you're ranked, like we won, like the chancellors, like our team has to win. The point is that's the impact that we have on people's lives in the state of Tennessee. And we want to do that safely over and over and over again. Call me weird, but 258,000 is a preceptor to 1 million hours a year. We're going to figure out how to do that. So Tennessee Promise, impact on Mottville, ECD, tax bases, et cetera, et cetera. we can't say enough about where it is and where it's going.
That's great. So Dennis, you now serve in a state role, Department of Tourism. Why is this workforce component so important to the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. The hospitality and tourism sector is Tennessee's second largest industry. And one day I may recalculate and try to go after agriculture and forestry, but right now agriculture and forestry lead the state and hospitality and tourism second. 194,000 Tennesseans are employed in the hospitality sector. And we're one of those unique sectors where someone can start as an entry-level job. Remember and think back, I won't have you raise your hand, but think about your first job. Many first jobs may have been even at a drive-thru or serving tables or at an entry level, maybe working at Dollywood at an entry level. There are so many entry level, and I can sit here and share story after story of people in our industry that started at an entry level role, found a gateway to become a hotel owner or a restaurant owner. There are so many career paths in hospitality and tourism. From entry level, we have accountants, we have bookkeepers, we have engineers, we have managers. There are so many careers, so much so as recent conversations in the last year with Commissioner Denise Thomas at the Department of Labor and Workforce. We have done a really good job sharing the data. If you know my boss, Commissioner Mark Buzel, he loves the data, and we peel back the onion. And the Department of Labor and Workforce has established 9 unique task forces assigned to the hospitality and tourism sector to meet the needs of industry to supply that pipeline of workforce. It's very important to Tennessee. We're a sales tax state, and every dollar that we can generate from a sales tax transaction benefits Tennesseans to the tune of about $1,100 per household in Tennessee right now.
I love that. Janice, long-term mentor. Obviously, I've talked about how Tennessee Achieves really wants to come alongside a community. We're community-based. You led a community-based scholarship program. How did the partnership work? Did we do okay?
Oh, yes. By being involved in Tennessee Achieves, I got to work with students in high school, and then I was familiar with the community college, so I can help them get in touch with who they needed to get in touch with, help answer their questions. And so many of these students are first-generation students. Their parents know nothing about college. So students don't know where to go to get the answers, and many of them drop out because it's so frustrating for them. That's why I think this mentor program is so important, because sometimes all it takes is just telling a student, you got this, you can do it. The other thing is to give them options, to let them know that they don't have to get a 4-year degree. Thank goodness we have TCATs. I have a daughter who's a teacher, and she's been teaching for a long time, and her son did not want to go to college, and he has a certificate in HVAC from a TCAT, and he's going to make more money than she'll ever make, sadly to say. But education's my passion, and it's just been such a joy to work with Tennessee Achieves and see how it's grown, and it's definitely impacted Sevier County. Sevier County is 3rd in tourism. We have a lot of money, we put a lot of money in the state, but the majority of our families in Sevier County are barely making it. These parents work hard, but they could never send their kids to college. So it's been a wonderful opportunity for all of our kids in Sevier County. And it's been really great because as I've mentored students at the community college, then I would introduce them to the opportunity that we could help them get that 4-year degree.
I love that. So mentors help get students in, and Abby's job is to wake up every day and help them get a credential, a post-secondary credential, a college credential, and be successful in the workforce. What are you talking to students about, Abby? What are the barriers? What's preventing them from going? And what kind of advice are you providing?
We're wearing a lot of hats. So as I mentioned, every student's a little different. I think as I grow more in this role and you serve more students, you identify that. For me, it was the accessibility piece. I think having someone that's proactively reaching out, which is what our coaches do, once a month to touch base. Are you completing these things? Do you need any help with this? Do you want to file your FAFSA together? Do we need to get you plugged into a community organization to do your community service hours? But also our smaller things like Most of our students are working full-time. I did that. It's a lot to juggle at 18 with a full-time class schedule as well. So if that's sitting down and time blocking your calendar or writing in your class assignments, it's those things too. And I think it all is dependent upon each student that comes in front of you, that you're putting on a different hat to meet them where they are and plug them into our resources in our community, on our staff, and complete grants, and also their campuses. Our Run State, I work with them closely, TCAT Upper Cumberland, a lot of resources that we're able to refer them to there. And I think that all of that comes together to get them to the next day, the next semester. And I share often with Christy and our team that every time I do a graduation photo, that never gets old for me, because that's another student that you have helped. And it's going to be a small piece of that, right? To see that they complete their college credential, they're going on to the 4-year or out into the workforce, and I'm 3 years in and I still get just as excited every time I see that. So yeah, I think it's depending on every student you're serving.
Let's give it up for our panel. Before I bring up our final speaker, I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to our dear friend Cliff for hosting us today. It's truly a celebration. Oftentimes when people are like, gosh, you've been at tnAchieves since the very beginning, you built this, we built this. You're in this room because we built this together. I think about everybody in this room who often I've asked too much of. We often are asking for favors. And so sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, we're here because you've allowed us to be. So thank you for allowing us to come into your communities and work alongside your students. Randy Boyd, there would be no tnAchieves without Randy Boyd. There would be no Tennessee Promise without Randy Boyd. I could spend all day, if you know me, I could be real sappy about Randy Boyd. He's just kind of pushing on the stage. But what I will say is this: I've never called Randy and said, I have a big idea, this is something I really want to do, and he's never told me no. He always says yes, how much will it cost? And oftentimes he's like, I'll take care of that in the beginning, and if it works, let's go find a way to get it funded. So I think about the fact that he was an angel donor. We launched in Fentress County in 2011 because Randy Boyd funded all of Fentress County. There would be none of this without him. So he's here to share some, always be closing. You gonna close us out? All right, Randy Boyd.
Appreciate that brief introduction. The agenda said that Cliff was going to give the brief introduction, and I'm glad I grabbed the microphone. The only thing you really need to know, Randy Boyd, first generation college goer, and 17-year tnAchieves member, two most important things in my life. And great to be with you all today. Great to be with Mayor Ridley and being in Crossville and Cumberland County. And Cliff, where's Cliff? Thank you for hosting us this amazing facility. So this is some advice that I would pass on to any higher education professional in the state of Tennessee, so there's other presidents in the room. One of the things you really want to try to avoid doing is publicly disagreeing with the Speaker of the House. But I can't help myself. I'm just going to say, let's put this out there. So I completed my 56th marathon on Sunday in Berlin. I like participation medals. Please don't give me participation medals. I live for those. But I take your point. Anyway, so I just want to close this out briefly. If you're keeping track, we're 15 minutes over. I'll tell you a very quick story and then say some thank you. So, quick story. I got the honor in 2013 of serving as Governor Houseland's special advisor on higher education. He says, go figure out what we need to do. So, any new role that you're in like that, the first thing you do is go out and listen. I went to probably 300 different professionals all across the state. Community technical college presidents, and it was everybody that I could find. And I got probably 500 ideas. So you have all these ideas, but what do you do? I found the difference between a good idea and a great idea is that great idea moves you further and faster towards your mission. However, if you don't have a mission, you just do anything. It doesn't really matter, you go in all directions. So I went out and searched for the mission. Turned out, I went to the same group of people and said, hey, what's the mission of the state of Tennessee in higher education? And nobody had one. Make a very longer story, very short. Finally, someone shared that. Well, in the public agenda at the Tennessee Higher Education Commission published, we have one. Our goal is to go from 32% post-secondary attainment to 42% by the year of 2025. I thought, wow, that's really a great goal. I mean, if you're in the goal-setting business, you had a date, you had a metric. That's perfect. Well, why are we talking about this for? By the way, how did you get to 42%? And they said, well, at the current trajectory, if we continue to do all the things we're doing now, by the year 2025, we'll be at 39%. Okay. Well, how did you get to 42%? I said, well, if we, by the year 2025, they're projecting that the national average will be 42%. So that's where we want to be. So let me get this straight. State of Tennessee, our goal, our mission, by the year 2025, our big, hairy, ambitious goal is to be average. Yeah, that's it. We're going to be average by the year 2025. Well, there's other professionals that are talking about where we need to be as a post-secondary attainment by 2025. What are they saying we need to be at? And they said, well, by the year 2025, we had to be at 55%. So it kind of seemed like if we had to be at 55%, that's where we need to be. Just a little point about setting goals. I think a great mission is something that's inspiring and aspiring. And a great mission lives between the probable and the impossible. So the probable in this case would be 39%. If we just came to work every day and did the exact same thing that we had been doing, we'd be at 39%. It's a goal, but it wouldn't be very exciting. We could have said our goal by the year 2025 is to be 100% post-secondary attainment. Well, that's impossible, so nobody's going to get excited. A great mission lives somewhere in between. And we paid 55% because we needed to be there. And we created some really innovative things that we wouldn't have otherwise done, like the Tennessee Promise. And by the way, we're being at a TCAT today, and I think it's really important to point out, we did a lot of calculations, one of which was quantifying how many different types of certificates and degrees we needed to have between 2013 and 2025. And of those, 40% of the delta would come from our TCAT. So this is why our TCATs are so incredibly important in this overall equation. So often we hear, well, not everybody needs to go to college. Well, you know, where you go to get technical training is a college of applied technology. So it's a critical, I think it's very representative that we're here today. But I'll close with this point. So I remember, I guess probably, actually before we launched the Tennessee Promise, but after we had announced the Driving 55, and talking to the governor about the challenge ahead. And he answered very legitimate questions. He says, what do you think our biggest challenge is to go from where we're at today to where we need to be by 2025? I came up with a really quick answer then that I thought about over and over since. I think it was the right answer. And the answer was, our biggest challenge is our culture, a culture of low expectations. We have so many places in our state, even still today with all the changes that we made, too many places in our state today, too many families in our state today that don't believe that we can achieve more. And I think because of programs like the Tennessee Promise and because of the work that everybody in this room does, we're changing that culture. Where children and kindergartners and their parents can sit at the table and think, you know, we can expect to go to college. We can expect to get a better education. We can expect to get a better job and have a better life because of the work that you guys do. So with that, I just want to say thank you to a few folks. So Governor Lee's not here, but his administration, we've got Commissioner Lizette Reynolds here. What a fortunate state we're in to have leadership. And I'm going to be nonpartisan and say, you can go back to Governor Bredesen, then Governor Haslam, and now followed by Governor Lee. Building on great programs and commitment to education. Flora and I will know, and everybody else that's in higher education knows, we're blessed to be in the state of Tennessee. It's not like this in so many other states where they're constantly cutting. So we're fortunate to have leadership of the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, the governor's leadership. We couldn't have done it without Speaker Sexton. He was there to making the vote back in the day when all this started, and he's been a stalwart in advocating for everything in our TCATs, everybody in higher education. So thank you, Cameron, for your leadership, and everybody in the General Assembly. I see a lot of my friends out there. I don't want to start calling names, because I would surely miss one, and then that's all I'll think about the rest of the day. So just thank you all for the General Assembly for your support. People that do the work in the trenches, the Tennessee Board of Regents, for all of the community colleges and the TCAT presidents. It's easy to kind of talk about these great theories and all the things we need to do and the levers you got to pull, but somebody's actually got to go do the work. You guys are doing the work in the trenches every day, making sure these students are successful. And then finally, I just want to say a shout out to Chrissy Delandro and everybody in Tennessee Achieves for 17 years. This team puts us first and foremost, the children or the students' interest first and foremost. And I just appreciate everything that you guys have done to make all this happen. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for all the great work you've done, and excited about all the great work we're going to do in the future. Thank you all.